state's attorney made the charges. So this is for my own safety. Hopefully it'll be out tomorrow. I can't imagine that they're not going to release me. They're saying my charges are first-degree murder, aggravated with a weapon, and Christmas conflict. So this is for my own safety to put me in custody. So here I am. That's what the state's attorney agreed, or that's what the state's attorney made the charges. Well, this whole new city yet. That's why hopefully it'll be out tomorrow.
The deadly force paradox. Despite being almost 400 miles apart, two police officers who are both connected to the terrible deaths of black women are at the center of a national controversy on police brutality. The cases have sparked a heated debate about accountability and the appropriate use of force by law officers. This summer, Takia Young was shot and killed in her car by police officer Connor Grubb of Blendon Township, Ohio. Grubb was charged with the crime. A full year after the occurrence, there was this indictment. In the meantime, former Sheriff's Deputy Sean Grayson was charged with first-degree murder in Illinois for murdering Sonya Massey in her kitchen while she was just taking a pot off the stove. It's interesting how these indictments came about. The year-long case of Grubb stands in stark contrast to Grayson's quick dismissal and Illinois' prompt action. The deputy was nearly immediately let go. His union did not oppose the dismissal, and following harsh criticism, including from Governor J.B. Pritzker, the sheriff even tendered his resignation. However, things appear drastically different in Ohio. Grubb's union firmly supports him, he is still on paid administrative leave, and it took a full year for the indictment to come to pass. Scholars are eager to relate these incidents to more general patterns. They contend that these instances, which are among the hundreds of similar police encounters that occur in the U.S. every year, show an alarming trend. Even with de-escalation protocols in place, lethal force is still far too frequently used. According to data, routine stops or small incidents, rather than the dramatic confrontations one might anticipate, are the primary cause of police killings. With 759+ people killed by U.S. law enforcement this year alone, 2024 is expected to be the deadliest year on record since tracking started in 2013. The differences in how these cases are handled, for example, Ohio's lengthier process and Illinois' quicker response, show how law enforcement accountability is impacted by public uproar and fear of retaliation. The actual difficulty, according to Loyola University Chicago law professor Stephen Rushin, is striking a balance between the necessity for swift action and equity. According to Rushin, the main concern is making sure that officers receive a fair trial and that those who are unsuitable to serve are held responsible.
How we are all not on the same page with what we've seen on that body cam.
We don't have time to think when shit pop off. So again, you could never, you would never. Put the badge on and let me see you do it.
It shoots you in the face. It is murder. He was scared for her life.
What happened to Sonya Massey never would have happened to her if she would have been a white woman.
Little ticked over asking her for her license. He didn't have to give him her license. She was in her home. He's standing pretty close. Situational awareness.
She said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." And that man lost his shit. I will say it until I turn blue in the face. And literally, her in cold blood.
He says, huh? She says, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." This sets him off. He goes off at being rebuked. I believe this wholeheartedly.
They were irritated going up to her door. This was an innocent woman, okay? I could hear it in their voice asking her for her ID.
He saw her put the pot down. He keeps saying, "Drop the pot, drop the pot, drop the pot." This guy should have never been in law enforcement, and he deserves to be in prison for the rest of his life. Yeah, she's still breathing, but she's losing a lot of blood. No remorse. Nothing.
Whose job is it? This is an insightful look at the terrible reality of police shootings that incite public indignation, but seldom appear to have an immediate negative impact on the officers involved. The public seems to be criticizing another shooting every month for being unjustified, but the situation is remarkably unchanged. officers continue to patrol and hold down their jobs. Consider the sad instance of 40-year-old Yang, who on May 2nd was experiencing a mental health crisis in his parents' Los Angeles apartment. When the police arrived, he was by himself after locking himself inside. According to Yin Yang, his brother, the Yang family demanded justice after body camera footage of the incident was made public. They demanded the firing and charging of the LAPD officer who had shot Yang. The department justified the incident by saying Yang was a threat because he had an 11-inch knife. According to Rosario Cervantes, a public information officer for the LAPD, the officer is still on duty despite the controversy.
Call leads to a man being shot and killed by LAPD.
Police did not tell us they killed our son until over an hour later. They will help him and take him to the hospital. And instead, they wouldn't let us see his body and say goodbye.
We haven't seen any yet. We have reason to believe that the body cameras were not in use. We don't know what is going on with the body cameras.
Moments LAPD shot and killed a man suffering from a mental health crisis.
Drop it! Drop it! Drop it!
Fast forward to December 2023 in Illinois, where a similarly distressing incident transpired. Jack Murray, a 24-year man, was shot by cops from the Village of Elk Grove Police Department outside his suburban Chicago house after calling 911. Police say the shooting was justifiable because Murray was armed with a knife. In the published body camera footage, Murray is seen stumbling along the street before being shot. Yet the cops involved are still actively patrolling, as confirmed by village spokesperson Caroline Gabiga.
Tell me exactly what happened.
There's somebody acting erratic with a knife.
Jack, put your hands up, Jack! Hands up, Jack! Put your hands up!
He's gonna get himself tased.
Jack!
This was somebody who needed medical help.
I don't want to approach the house yet. I want to see if they can get out of the house.
Not police intervention. Now, with regard to the crisis intervention training, approaching someone who had problems, Jack was not okay.
Uncommon convictions. When deadly force is employed, a split-second choice can determine whether police personnel will be held criminally or civilly liable. Legal expert Stephen Russian claims that the crucial moment is the only thing being discussed, not whether the officers had a chance to defuse the situation before it became deadly. Put differently, courts hardly ever investigate whether the use of critical or lethal force was necessary, since there was no de-escalation. According to Russian, it all comes down to evaluating the danger involved at the time, and deciding whether or not using force was necessary. In essence, cops are not allowed to use lethal force unless there is an imminent and serious threat. He also said that using lethal force isn't lawful if the threat isn't immediately life-threatening. The Mapping Police Violence Project estimates that over 1,200 persons were killed by police in the U.S. in 2023 alone. For 10 years, this astounding figure has been rising consistently. Even with the increase in deaths, just a small portion of cops are being charged with severe offenses such as manslaughter or first degree while they are on duty. The information shows a frightening truth. In less than 2% of police killings, charges are brought against the officer. Of those, even fewer, just 1% result in a conviction. Additionally, the data presents a clear picture of racial inequality. The majority of these violent confrontations affect people of color. Even though they only make up 13% of the population, Black people were responsible for 27% of police killings in 2023. Different methods. Think about the thin line that police officers must walk when confronted with danger. They are armed with non-lethal weapons like pepper spray and tasers. However, these choices have a unique set of drawbacks. John Jay College of Criminal Justice's Brian Higgins provides a clear illustration of this delicate balancing effort. Pepper spray, for example, is not a one-size-fits-all answer. Some people may not even experience any affects at all. Higgins has also seen a number of incidents where police officers unintentionally sprayed themselves or their co-workers with it. Although the taser has some potential, accuracy is required. The proper distance between officers and a suspect is crucial, as the device's probes may not be able to pass through thick clothing. Higgins highlights that employing non-lethal techniques can be a hazardous gamble because of these problems. Should the taser not work as intended, the officer's life may be in jeopardy. To direct officers' responses, law enforcement agencies often adhere to a use of force continuum. This spectrum includes non-lethal measures like pepper spray, tasers, or batons, as well as verbal and physical directives and the possibility that an officer's very presence could discourage crime. Only when someone presents a significant threat is it acceptable to use lethal force, such as weapons. Rather than using hindsight, the Department of Justice bases its determination of whether a police shooting was justified on the assessment of the circumstances from the viewpoint of a reasonable officer present at the scene. In situations such as the one involving Connor Grubb of Blendon Township, Ohio, this principle becomes extremely important. What is the value of life? An officer has a lot on their plate before deciding to use lethal force. They must consider the circumstances, whether it makes sense to draw a gun in the given circumstance and whether the claimed offense merits it. To put it plainly, does taking a life make sense to Higgins? Regarding this, the Department of Justice has some very specific guidelines. Since the main goal of their policy is to value and save human life, police are only allowed to use force when there is no other reasonable or safer course of action. Someone cannot just be shot because they are attempting to flee. Furthermore, unless the driver actually poses a threat to other people or the police, it is expressly forbidden in the handbook for officers to shoot at moving automobiles. Higgins contended that there wasn't much justification to kill Takia Young because the crime she was involved in. Shoplifting wasn't precisely grounds for a mass murder. Shooting at a moving car can be particularly dangerous, since an injured driver may not be able to stop the car, which increases the risk. Higgins points out that changes have occurred in policing over the last 10 years, particularly in the wake of George Floyd's tragic death in 2020. He claims that when the cops showed they're in charge, the rule of the day was to not flee. Officers, however, are now being trained that they do not always need to hold their position if they can prevent escalating a situation without endangering others. Drop your thoughts and comments below and then hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.